Hello, everyone. This is the DraftKings Daily Trot, and I am your host, Russell Clay. You can find me at Russell J. Clay on Twitter. And now that we have my daily introduction out of the way, let's talk about this 15-game Sunday slate starting at 1. So obviously be aware of that. You're going to see this hopefully before 1. So we will get this content out for you and hopefully you can get in before 1. It's always a different on a Sunday, but I mean, we got a nice 15 gamer, be a nice little afternoon slate for the most part, and you get to watch some baseball pretty early afternoon, just like most Sundays. So let's get into it here. Get into pitchers a little bit. John Lester, obviously the ace on the hill tonight, going up against the Braves. 13-4. I mean, it's expensive, but it's worth it. Braves dead last in WOBA ISO and WRC plus against lefties since 2014. So you kind of look at that and say, Lester cash game arm. Even if you like other options for two pitcher slates, I think you just throw Lester in. Obviously, you lived through Jose Fernandez last night, which wasn't the greatest, and pretty much the same thing. But Lester's in even a better matchup here, even though he's not quite as strong of a pitcher. So you're looking at him there. A few other guys I really like. Steven Matz versus the Brewers. I don't like this matchup for the Brewers. They have such a high strikeout rate, and Matz has shown quite a bit of upside this year, so I like that. Aaron Sanchez, obviously he's shown similar upside to Matz at some parts of the season, obviously been inconsistent as well. But going up against the Orioles with their high strikeout rate, looking at them as a pretty solid option there, as someone to fade. And then you got Sanchez there. So Sanchez more of a tournament play for sure. Going down here, Adam Conley in a super contrarian GPP lineup type of way, going up against that tough Diamondbacks lineup, 4.8 to 5 projected run total for the Diamondbacks from where I've looked. And Conley's just been super up and down this year. It's either 25 to 30 fantasy points or 4 to -4, like we've seen in 2 of the last 4 outings. So you never really know what you're going to get, just like a box of chocolates with Adam Conley. So worth a gamble, in my opinion, even though it's perceived as a tough matchup. Going down, there's one more guy I really look at down low, Julio Urias, obviously going up against the Giants team that got beat up the other day by Kershaw. That's not necessarily indicative of who they are. I'm not worried about them like that, but I do think for 5,500, you're looking at some upside with Urias in terms of what you're doing with this slate. So he can definitely get you to pay up at another spot or another few spots, depending on how you work it. So 5,500, solid value. I think he's coming into his own with that last start. And the upside is obviously unquestioned at this stage. We can see the stuff just by watching a few pitches. So, yeah, hope he gets it going. 5,500, I'm in. Anyway, so those are kind of the 5 guys I'm looking at for pitcher. Moving over to catcher. Buster Posey, again, in the same light of Urias upside, there is that downside. I don't mind paying up for Posey tonight at 4,500 if you can fit it in. I think it'll be a little more contrarian just because of the salary, but I think it's worth it. Brian McCann gets a matchup against an apparent ace in Michael Fulmer, 3,300 lefty versus righty matchup, though. I think we're going at those Yankees bats again today, even though it didn't work out yesterday. I think that's a good move. Wellington Castillo against Adam Conley. Again, Conley is total boomer bust. It either goes well or it goes down in burning flames. I think we're looking at him as sort of a super contrarian play, but again, you always have Wellington Castillo and the Diamondbacks lineup to throw out there as a stack as well. Stephen Vaught, oh, obviously, you're pretty much throwing him out there. He's always a value. Got a nice matchup today against the Reds in their bullpen, so I'm looking at that for sure as well. In terms of lower options, Cleveland, I think, is again in play as tournament option. So Yan Gomes, um, you're looking at there, and then another guy in the 3K range is Salvador Perez, obviously. If he's not if he's not in the lineup, you're looking at Butera, who's always a value. So you can definitely throw that in there. Um, if Dustin Garno is in the lineup, 2,800, you're looking at that for sure. Christian Vasquez. These are all kind of guys that jump in and out of the lineup. So just be aware of that. As they get checked off, throw them out there. And in terms of going low, I mean, Matt Wieters 2,600 is obviously appealing. Not a perfect matchup though, so probably not touching too much or having too many shares, but 2,600, you can't really argue with that. And then obviously Kurt Suzuki chilling down there at 2,200, but he's always chilling there at 2,200 and hardly ever pays off his price. So I think you're pretty much avoiding him unless you literally need it. But as I mentioned, if Butera is in the lineup, you throw him in for 2,100. So that's first. Pretty straightforward. Mike Napoli is the top priced first baseman, and he deserves it. He has been cruising lately, and I don't think I have any problem with this, which I don't think I would have said earlier this year. But I mean, 14 homers, been crushing both sides of the plate. So against Tough tonight, I do like it, but again, I'm not going all in on the Indians. So it's gonna be tough. It's going to be tough to go all in on Napoli as well. Maybe get a share or two, but that's about it for me. In terms of good matchups, though, I'm looking at David Ortiz at 5,200. Just a better. I love Napoli, but Ortiz is just a better hitter right now. I mean, he's just mashing both sides of the plate. So, I would go with Ortiz there as well, and probably get more exposure to him in terms of my high upside, high priced first baseman. Um, Miguel Cabrera 4,400 against Michael Pineda. I like that matchup, and I like that price for Cabrera. I think that's pretty reasonable. Obviously, you always have to choose between him and Martinez, but I think we go with Cabrera there today and feel pretty confident about it. Edwin Encarnacion, obviously hit 3 home runs in the last 3 days, but do we go back to the well again? I don't think I am. I think he has a decent matchup, but it's not great. Jimenez has shown some sort of signs of life the last few starts, so I'm probably just avoiding Encarnacion at his price compared to the guys around him. It's not that he's a bad player; I just think there are better values around him. So Mark Reynolds, 4,200. Obviously, you would never want to pay that outside of Coors, but I mean, Rockies are basically projected for 7 runs tonight. So I think you want any piece of that lineup that you can get, especially in the not top 5 of the lineup because it's contrarian. So I think you can mess around with the Rockies quite a bit tonight and find some contrarian ways. Because their prices are so high, I don't know that they're going to be that highly owned. So you look at him and a few other of the lower priced guys, and I think you can differentiate yourself for sure. Eric Hosmer against Rodon, I do like that. That's pretty cheap, and Rodon hasn't been a dominant pitcher by any means this year. So, looking down a little bit, we got Chris Carter and Chris Davis right next to each other, which I just think is funny. I don't think we're seriously looking at either of them. Hanley Ramirez, probably not, because I think we just want to bump up to Ortiz. Matt Adams versus John Neese. That's a solid matchup, and I kind of like that for Adams. So again, the Cardinals are struggling big time right now, but what are you gonna do? I think you just keep going back to them. I'm not too worried about it, and the prices are still reasonable. So give me Matt Adams for 35, and I'll take the results. All right. Yonder Alonso, if he's in the lineup for 3K, solid. Um, I mean, depending on who starts between Chris Johnson and Justin Bohr, I'm not afraid of Robbie Ray. So 27 and 2,800. Again, if you're looking for pure punts. And then Adam Lind isn't going to be in the lineup, but you get to look at his pretty price there at 2,400. So that's too bad. Second base, Altuve is 5,600. That is too much for me. I don't think Matt Moore's a great pitcher, but I also don't think he's a liability either. So I think you're looking at a pretty reasonable range of outcomes for Altuve tonight, but again, it's not 100%. So 5,600 is quite the price to pay. I'd rather just get Ortiz and bump up at first. DJ LeMahieu, obviously you like that at 4,800, and in Coors obviously has tons of upside. And in terms of the slate, I think you got to make your move somewhere, and I think mine's going to be with Coors tonight and just paying up and paying down at pitching. Unless it's cash games, then you just pay for Lester and figure it out. But in terms of tournaments, I think you can make quite a few Coors lineups, as I mentioned with Mark Reynolds, that doesn't necessarily match up with everyone else. Ben Zobrist, 4,200, sure, throw him in there. He's been hitting so well this year, even in a perfect matchup, but we don't really know what we're going to get from Gant here. So I'd definitely throw all Cubs in there, including Zobrist. He's one of the better priced guys. It's getting to be every day where I talk about Odor and Profar, but they're getting up there in price. It was fun when they were mid threes and when Profar was like mid twos, but now it's getting pricey. They're not really the same deal they were a few weeks ago. I don't know that I'm going to be touching them tonight, so probably avoid that, unfortunately. Again, Giants in play. Joe Panic, 3,900. Not a bad option if Urias struggles with control again, which he has of late. So I think we're looking at that. Josh Harrison, lefty versus righty matchup, 3,700. You gotta like that. Chase Utley versus Jake Peavy. Peavy's turned it around a little bit, but not quite enough to be comfortable with him and to trust him to not play hitters against him. So Chase Utley, I like that matchup. Steve Pearce versus Dallas Keuchel. I call him Keuchel, and Jason always corrects me. But I like Keuchel better, even though it sounds weird. I think he's a weird dude, so I think it fits. Steve Pearce against Dallas Keuchel, 3,400. Solid value there, in my opinion. And I still don't think we're going back to the Starlin Castro train. It was fun for a week, but he's hitting some tough matchups here. So I think he's back down to kind of just avoid for now status until he gets some easier matchups. Descalso, if he's somehow in the lineup, 2,900 for a Coors bet. You got to love that. Dietrich, Robbie Ray, again, Marlins bats priced down super low against a non-ace. So, and I mean, when you look at the averages around Stanton, it's like 320, 320, 320, 190. It's incredible. This Marlins offense would be dominant right now with him between Ozuna, Yelich, Dietrich, and Ichiro. I mean, they're just crushing right now, and they're not getting anything from their best hitter. So kind of rough for the Marlins right now because they'd really have a strong offense with him. But yeah, again, Dietrich betting 320 on the year, so that's definitely something you're looking for at 2,800. Going down here. Um, there's not much in terms of things you'd want other than punts. So I think you just kind of keep an eye out for that. There isn't many great matchups. Obviously, there's a lot of good pitching tonight, so it kind of lowers your odds of finding a good value down there because all the guys that are down there are going against aces. So um, it depends on what's going on. So I think you just check there during lineup lock and maybe find a second baseman, but there should be one or two 2,000 to 2,500 range guys. Uh, Third base, Nolan Arenado, which I mean, yeah, definitely the best high priced option. Not playing him over, or not playing Matt Carpenter or Evan Longoria over him. Josh Donaldson's close, but not quite. The 500 difference doesn't make that enough of a difference for me. And then Chris Bryant, solid matchup, but I like Arenado if we're playing up there. In terms of Anthony Rendon, 4,600 Nationals. I just don't see him having the same upside as a Chris Bryant or a Josh Donaldson. So I think when you look at that, he seems a little overpriced, especially for what he's done this year. I know he has a good matchup, but so doesn't Donaldson and Bryant. So he's not really in play for me. Eduardo Suarez and Eduardo Nunez are right next to each other today. Oh, Eugenio, excuse me, Suarez. I think those are both decent options, especially with Porcello and the way he's pitched of late. Nunez obviously been mashing the ball. 4,500, more of a contrarian play than a strong process play, but I'm okay with it. In terms of, again, Martin Prado, not quite up to par with sort of what the rest of the Marlins bats have been doing other than Stanton, but he's definitely still a strong option. Ben, 323 on the year. Gotta love that lefty righty matchup against Ray. I don't see a problem with it. Kyle Seager fading tonight, obviously lefty on lefty, not touching that. Jung Ho Kang, I can't do it tonight. Probably not touching him against Leak, especially with park factors and all that considered. So, yeah, probably not touching him, unfortunately. But obviously, we love you, Jung Ho Kang. Jose Ramirez, a little more expensive than usual, which I'm okay with. Other than Napoli, I mean, they're all still pretty reasonably priced. 3,900, sure. I think when you look at that matchup, there's some serious contrarian upside. So as I mentioned with the Indian bats, maybe a little mini stack thrown in there to a regular lineup that's pretty reasonably priced is a good idea. Josh Rutledge, if he's in the lineup, I'm always looking at him. Hernan Perez has been awesome this year. I know he has a tough matchup, but he might be one of those guys where you just throw him in, hope he gets a hit or two and maybe a stolen base against Mats. 2,500, not a bad value. And then again, Sardinas min priced. If he's in the lineup, it's going to be tough to even get any traction against Hamels, but 2K, I can't deny that. All right. Xander Bogaerts, yes. Trevor Story, sure. Corey Seager, yes. Shortstop's loaded tonight. Obviously, you have all the options as usual, but In terms of those top options, they're really strong. Lindor kind of out of play for me with Napoli just because of the strong options around them. I really like the value bets from the Indians, not necessarily the high priced options. Eduardo Nunez pops up again, 4,500. Not bad, but probably looking other directions at shortstop today. Danny Espinoza has been really solid. He's only 4K, so you don't hate that against Morgan. Obviously, it's a good matchup, but some of the other nationals are priced up a little too high for me. And I think you look at Aledemys Diaz. We all love him, or I sure hope you do at this stage because he just is money. Um, so I think we throw him in there. 3,800, still not on 4K, so let's keep going at it. And then Machado, I mean, I'm not worried about that for him. 3,700, give me that all day. He's just too good of a hitter. He's been priced down quite a bit the last two slates. Obviously, he didn't do great when he was 3,700, but 26 points last time out at 4K. So, I mean, it's Manny Machado. I don't know why he's so cheap. Sanchez is a solid pitcher, but not to make Manny Machado 3,700. So I'd be rolling with him. Pretty strong play there. Javier Baez, obviously you're throwing him in there. I mean, he's been great of late, and you're kind of looking at him as a cheap Cub to get in there, especially against this Atlanta pitching staff and Gant. So definitely looking at there, and he kind of takes a lot of these mid-range guys out of play for me because that'll be the guy I'm really going to. Gregorio Superstar Pettit 2,700, but I think we're avoiding him tonight, unfortunately. 2,700, but against Salazar, so not tonight. Same with Didi Gregorius, not a strong enough hitter against Fulmer for me to feel comfortable playing him. And sort of the way Fulmer's been pitching of late. So I think that's kind of the way you're going there. I don't think you should pay down at shortstop tonight. I think there's some great options here throughout the mid range and the high end range, especially. So if there was a position that you normally wouldn't pay up for, it's shortstop, but right here tonight, I love it. Especially Story. I mean, Story, Bogarts, and Corey Seager. Those are really strong options. So I expect quite a few fantasy points out of them. You get up here, and the last of the super highly priced Boston Red Sox, 5,600. Obviously, super highly priced, and it's going to be tough to fit a stack in unless you get a Urias in your lineup. But I think if you do, you can make it work. So play around with it. You might not be able to get a full red stock stack in, but if you want Betts, Bogarts, and Ortiz, I do think it is plausible with some of the cheaper pitching options. So that's kind of what you're looking at there. Adam Duvall is crushing the ball this year. I mean, he's taking over that Adam Dunn role with the strikeouts and the home runs. So I like that matchup for him. 5,300 is expensive, but I think he's got good odds at a homer tonight. So I really like that for him. Matt Kemp, I can't do these Padres at these prices. Maybe it'll kill me, but I can't do it. I know they've been solid of late, but I can't do it on this slate. There's just too many other good options. Charlie Blackmon, for instance, on the other side, I do like that against Friedrich. Friedrich has pitched well of late, but he's not all that strong of a pitcher historically. So I think we're looking at that. Chris Bryant, outfield eligible if you want to fit some strong third baseman in. And then Bryce Harper versus Morgan, that's actually pretty reasonably priced for him, 4,800 instead of Rendon. I think that's kind of who I'm looking at there. Cruz against Hamels, that's solid. I do like that. Cruz has kind of been struggling with a lot of lefty-lefty matchups or lefty-righty matchups of late, but I think that's a decent contrarian leverage shot because I think people are going to be on Hamels today. Stanton, you walk right by him, just like usual. Again, we've started to do this, guys. Just walk right by him. I know it's Giancarlo Stanton, but you just keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. Don't think about it. Um, Mike, you have Mike Trout at 4,400. Please just do that instead of going Stanton. No, but Trout obviously in a tough matchup, but 4,400, can't deny that for Trout. He's awesome against everyone, so I'm not too worried about the matchup for him. In terms of the Cardinals, again, I don't necessarily like that price for Piscotty, but I'm probably going to be willing to pay it. Unlike Stanton, I'm willing to trust that these Cardinals will turn it around in some of these matchups. So I do like their matchup again, and I'm going at them. Ryan Braun against Mats, leverage play, not a good initial play, but I think if you want to fade Mats, he might be someone you want to take a look at. Brett Gardner against Fulmer. Fulmer sort of the last few games have been good, but again, he was 5,500 just a few weeks ago and a struggling pitcher. So let's not get too fooled by the box score here. Gardner and lefties, Jacoby. I think that's what you're looking at in the mid 4K range in terms of solid values. Jose Ramirez, again, just like at third base, decent value tonight. Andrew McCutchen versus Mike Leake. I'm okay with that matchup. Obviously, yesterday against Liriano was a little different, but I do like McCutchen. I just screwed that up. He didn't face Liriano yesterday. Liriano was pitching for Pittsburgh. Anyway, he was facing Schumacher. That was the tough matchup. Cameron Maybin, still batting over 400. Barely. But I think you look at him sort of as an interesting play to stack with Tigers. So that's kind of something to look at there. Matt Holliday coming off the big night. I think you can go back to him again and feel comfortable, just kind of like the rest of the Cardinals there. Ichiro, 330 on the year, 3,600. Leading off, sure. 3,600. I mean, I'll take it. That's just kind of what you're looking at with him at this stage. I mean, he just gets you 2 hits a night. It's just how it works. Ichiro, back to prime Ichiro somehow. Maybe he went to Sweden or something, or wherever those NBA players go on those retreats. Anyway, going lower, Byron Buxton, been in the lineup pretty much every day. Not a great matchup. Probably going to get some strikeouts, but he obviously does have some extra base potential, and he has shown that of late. So I think we're looking at him as sort of a decent value play against Porcello, who's been his stuff is good, but he's kind of fallen apart once or twice in most of his starts. You know, he just had a bad inning here or there, and it kind of throws things off for him. So if Buxton can fall into that bad inning, then I think you're looking at a strong value there. So that's kind of what you're looking at there. In terms of other options, I mean, I think you just wait till lock 10 minutes or so before. Chris Coughlin might be in the lineup. Wait for that, 2,600. Nolan Remold, something like that, 2,400. You just kind of play it like that and throw them in there. So that is the DraftKings slate. Good luck. Obviously, there's plenty of different ways to go. There's players in all ranges, so just be aware of that when you're making tournament lineups. And if you are making quite a few, be careful out there. 15 gamers are rough. And if you pretty much miss on 1 or 2 guys, you're out in tournaments. So be careful. Make sure they're efficient user optimizer. And as always, check out Daily Fantasy Cafe and as I mentioned, use those cool tools and our awesome content. So thanks for listening.